Krsna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasati.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavad-gita continues throughout the ages and also throughout my little YouTube channel. We are still in the second chapter, reading Bhagavad-gita as it is. Yeah, Bhagavad-gita as it is. Bhagavad-gita as it is. Translated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and also including his purports. And I will read text 32 in the second chapter. Yadrichaya chopapanang svargadvaram apavritam sukhina kshatriya partha labhante yudham idrisham. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors to the heavenly planets. So there is still the discussion. Arjuna did not want to go on the battlefield. He did not want to be part of all of this. He gives all very good reasons. And, those reasons are described alternately as the proof that Arjuna is a very civilized person with a soft heart and Vaishnava sensibilities, and sometimes described as being the result of illusion and not understanding things as they are, being, sentimentally attached to doing that which looks good but maybe isn't ultimately good. So both those aspects are there, and Krishna is describing the reasons for this fighting from different aspects. Specifically, he's describing how the soul is eternal. And therefore, that has to be taken into consideration when we make our choices in life. As Supreme Teacher of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, I do not find any good in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell. Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. Yes, ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean that we are stupid. Ignorance means we don't know. And there are lots of things that we don't know. Especially these things pertaining to cause and effect on a more subtle level. We can see cause and effect. I mean, if I pour water in the sofa, it will be wet. That's very obvious. If I set fire to it, it will burn. Maybe. I will not do that. That would be foolish. But on a more subtle platform, our activities in this world, in this human body, they have a result. They have the direct result, of course, as mentioned, physical things. Also in a subtle sense, if we step into a certain mindset, if we become very envious, if we become very ambitious, if we become very lazy, all of that creates a certain mood that will, that will create the next step. Like we have the experience in this world that certain, we can always use Hitler, he's a good example, nobody likes Hitler. But there are other regimes also in the world that started by vilifying a group, calling them subhuman, establishing that as an acceptable fact, that these group of people, they're not as good as us. And then when later on violence is done to those people, nobody protests because the idea, the concept has taken root. So the first thing he said, a word, that you can always speak words, that is not illegal, but the result of those words are that you create a certain atmosphere that paves the way for the next step of activities. And also here Arjuna saying this will create a hellish situation. And if we are fighting like that, we will go to hell. And Arjuna says, no, that's not true. Because Dharma says, if you are a Kshatriya and you are protecting your kingdom for the sake of Dharma and your people and your country, that takes you to the heavenly planets. It may not be logical to you, but that's how it works. Many things are not logical when we are in ignorance. if we pick up a telephone, if a little child picks up a telephone and then they hear the voice in the telephone, they're thinking, oh, is there a little man in the telephone? No, we are grown-ups. We know that these sound waves are somehow or another. Okay, I'm a grown-up. I know you have this reception and antennas. I cannot claim to understand exactly how it works, but I know when I speak to somebody on the phone, it's not a little man in my phone. It's an actual real person somewhere else using a similar telephone. But if you're in ignorance, you don't know that. Similarly, what happens after death? If you're in ignorance, you don't know that. And therefore we want to study at least the Bhagavad-gita for some knowledge. And when we have a little bit of knowledge, then we can also plan our activities in such a way that we will have the desired results and not just randomly roll into the next existence. We wouldn't do that in life. In the morning I go to work, I take a commuter train. I know which train I step onto. I step on the train that takes me to my destination. I don't step on the wrong train that goes in the other direction. I figure these things out, and then I'm not in ignorance of the destiny of my train. And similarly, when we live this life, and especially when we leave this body, when we die, it is good to have some basic knowledge of where we are going, which activities will bring which result. And here Arjuna says, this is hellish, so much blood, so much suffering, I don't want to do it. And Krishna says, no, actually, if you are doing your duty as a kshatriya and the fighting that comes with it, this will not take you to hellish planets, this will take you to Svarga, to the heavenly planets at least. In a material sense, you can go to the heavenly planets. Of course, we're not interested in the heavenly planets. We want to realize the full scope of our spiritual home, the spiritual planets, which comes from devotional service. But in this situation, the battlefield of Kurukshetra, you can speak, from one angle or from the other. Ultimately, Krishna is only interested in pure devotional service, but at the same time, he wants to point out here, Arjuna, you are speaking learned words, but you don't know what you're talking about. So that is ignorance. He wanted to become non-violent in the discharge of his specific duty. For a kshatriya to be on the battlefield and to become non-violent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parashara Smriti, or religious codes made by Parashara, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is stated, Kshatriyo hi prajarakshan shastrapani pradandayan nirjitya parasainyadi kshiting dharmena palayet. The Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom, and if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. Yes, so this is knowledge. And when we don't have such knowledge, we try our best. And we try to be good people, and we try to organize things in a good way. And sometimes we succeed, and sometimes we fail, and sometimes we're happy, and sometimes we're in distress. And that is simply the material world. So at least we should have some knowledge. And what is even better than a little knowledge is, to take the first step in spiritual life. Because spiritual endeavors are eternal. They stay with the soul. Everything material, even if you reach the heavenly planets, Krishna is not really recommending that. We will hear it later on in the Bhagavad-gita, that those who worship the demigods in order to reach the heavenly planets, their results are temporary. And the spirit soul, it doesn't matter the situation, how good it is, it will ultimately end. And therefore, in the human form of life, we want to aim for the real permanent solution. But the Vedic philosophy, Bhagavad-gita's philosophy, Vaishnava philosophy, there is also some knowledge. We have some knowledge of how the world works. Karma is a law. all these planets, all these levels, all these duties that are coming up here, we don't want to be simplistic and say we're just going to sit down and believe in God and we're going to have a very narrow worldview. No, we want to understand all these things, but ultimately, this will also come later, Krishna goes through the whole Bhagavad-gita, he speaks to Arjuna all this knowledge, then he turns around to Arjuna and said, now I have explained everything to you. You think about it and you do what you think is best. So ultimately it's up to us what we want to do with this knowledge. But at the very least, we should have the knowledge. Because if we don't know, then how can we make a good decision? How can we prioritize things in our lives? So thankfully, Arjuna had these doubts, which made Krishna speak the Bhagavad-gita, because that means we also have access to the Bhagavad-gita. We can read it, we can learn it, we can practice it. And that will be a very good thing. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam